Well, today we are talking about, of course, all you need is love. And yes, I am still referencing some of my talk, not all of it, but some of my talk is still going to be on Einstein and the rabbi. And this will probably be my final week to be referencing this. But I want to start out with, God is not a punishing God. It's one of the main things that got me loving unity 30 years ago was when I heard that God was not a punishing God, that there was not a God keeping a record book. And I remember hearing that, and I remember thinking to myself, I've known that since I was 8 years old. But in my religion classes, that's not what I was hearing. But at 8 years old, I remember sitting in my little desk thinking, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that would be the God that I know. But you couldn't say it, right? At 8 years old? Oh, no. That was definitely just hell. I remember holding it in. And when I came and stepped into a unity church and I heard that, I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm home. I'm home. See if you can take this statement in. And this actually does come out of the book, The Einstein and the Rabbi. God is the soul of the world. That's a big statement. God is the soul of the world. God, being the soul of the world, is always believing in us, cheering for us, praying for us, strengthening us, teaching us, sometimes through the school of hard knocks, right? How many have had to learn that way, Now, that's the God that made sense to me, and still to this day makes sense to me. I learned from Naomi, she's the author of this book, Naomi Levy, who is a rabbi. I learned from her this Hebrew word called Husa, Husa. Husa. Husa is a special kind of love. Husa is about having compassion for something that is flawed. Having compassion for something that is flawed. Husa is also the absence of judgment. Years ago, I don't know how long ago, but I do remember doing a talk on a book called, and I always say this, Wabi Sabi Love. It is a Japanese word, Wabi Sabi Love, which means illuminating the beauty of imperfection. In Japan, if a vase has a crack in it, they do not dispose of it. They actually honor it. For that crack, to them, represents wabi-sabi love. And so that they go beyond the crack to find the perfection in that imperfection. Isn't that interesting? To find. But we are always trying to, I'll just say it for myself and ask for any hands up here. Anybody, for me, I'm always looking at my imperfections. And I'm sure that came from childhood. I'm sure it came from my educators. For me, I had nuns and priests in grade school. And so there was always this strive for perfection. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but what, maybe somebody can relate to this. I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, oh, look at that. What the heck is happening here? I need to pull these eyelids up and these, oh, this. Can anybody relate to that? Yes, we look in the mirror and we don't say, oh, I'm having a good hair day. We look in the mirror and say, oh, wait a minute, there's a piece there that's not quite right. We're always looking for all the things that are not quite right. Let me share a little story here. There was a 65-year-old woman who had a heart attack and she was taken to the hospital. And while on the operating table, she had a near-death experience. Seeing God, she asked, is my time up? God said, nope. You have another 33 years, 2 months, and 8 days to live. Upon recovery, the woman decided to stay in the hospital and have a facelift, liposuction, and a tummy tuck. She even had someone come in and change her hair color and brighten her teeth. Since she had so much, more time to live, she figured out she might as well make the most of it. So after her last operation, she was released from the hospital, and while crossing the street on her way home, she was killed by an ambulance. Arriving in front of God, she demanded, I thought you said I had another 33 years. Why didn't you pull me from the path of that ambulance and save me? God replied, I didn't recognize you. We're so worried about our imperfections, aren't we? How little wabi-sabi love, how little Husa do we give ourselves, much less other people in our lives. We're worse, though. I know I am. I'm worse on myself. Yeah, I'm looking at imperfections in other people, or especially when they've hurt me. Oh, then I really start racking up how imperfect they are, But boy, oh boy, can I rack it up on myself more than anybody. And, there's going back to this Husa thing. Naomi shares a story about this man named John. And John is a lawyer who's divorced, and he has a daughter, Naomi. And I want to think she's about somewhere around 14, 15 years old. And anybody who's been around or raised a 14, 15, 16-year-old, especially, I don't know, but I can only say my own story, girls. My son was a little bit this way too, but my daughter was definitely more of an attitude at that age. They loved me, and all of a sudden it seemed like when she became a teenager, it's like, what the heck happened? All of a sudden I became her worst enemy. I didn't know anything anymore. And there was always this attitude going on. Well, John was experiencing the same thing with his daughter. And being a divorced man, here's what the daughter would throw out. I'm going to go live with my mom. And it hurt him. She just kept saying this to him. So he went to Naomi, a rabbi, for counsel. And Naomi was teaching him about Husa. And she said, I want you to try something. I want you to spend 30 days doing Husa meditations, which meant, like Wabi Sabi love, looking at her, imagining her with her imperfections and still seeing the perfect light and perfect child of God that she is. Now, John, not being real familiar with meditation, thought, all right, I'll try it, but I don't think that's going to do any good. Well, 30 days later, he came back into her office and he looked like a totally different person. And she said, what happened? And he said, all I can tell you is I was able to see and keep reminding myself of the good, of all the good that my daughter is, and that she's not all those hurtful words that she's spewing out at me. That's not her. There is this loving little girl still in there. And I just kept seeing that. And all of a sudden, things started to change at home. Not one word was spoken, but she became lighter. We started to laugh more in the house. It was like we were having fun and laughing again. And that's the power of Husa. That's the power of wabi-sabi love. Instead of fighting the imperfections, instead of fighting with the imperfections of others and the imperfections of ourselves, when we can accept and actually love and honor those imperfections, everything changes. You know, she says in here, Husa gives us the courage to see ourselves and the conscience to see beyond ourselves. The art of remaining on the path, even when the road is inhospitable, even when it seems as if you've made no progress at all. Stay with it, and it will change. Stay with it, and it will change. You know, she talks about, you know, the soul. We've been talking a lot for the last 2 weeks. This now brings the third week in about the power of our soul and loving our soul. And, you know, as I started off this morning with that statement, you know, God, what if God is the soul of the world? You know, he talks about how do we heal our soul? Because so many of us have abandoned our soul, or maybe not abandoned it, but we really don't give it much credit, much time. But I'm going to say many of us have abandoned it. You know, we just take it for granted that, oh yeah, there's a soul somewhere in there, and it's going to go on when I leave this world. And I don't really know where it's going to go on to, and I really don't know much about it, but everybody says that the soul is eternal, so I guess that's true. And that's pretty much all we give to it. But the soul literally is like, your soul has a perfect GPS if we gave it more attention and spent time in meditation, in quiet, listening to it. You know, I like to say the soul has a perfect GPS, God's perfect system. God's perfect system resides in each and every one of us. But how many of us take time to listen, much less trust it? You know, no, I need to go Google it, or I need to go talk to 4 or 5 people and get their opinions before I move forward on something. Instead of just going within and listening to that inner voice. That's where your soul resides. At least that's how it feels to me. And she talks about, you know, we need to work on healing our souls. And how do you heal your soul? And I'm going to give you a couple of ideas that she brought to mind, and they made perfect sense to me. And I'm going to look at Kayleen on this one, but I know many of you, music can heal your soul. Music can heal your soul. I know sometimes when I am really down, I find myself not turning my radio on. I don't play music in my house. It's almost like I'm encouraging myself to go downward. When I know if I just crank up some 70s music, it's going to bring me up. no matter what I'm dealing with. You know, a good version of Mamma Mia. Oh my goodness, look out. I'm dancing all over the living room. It literally can help heal the soul. You know, there's a video. I showed an excerpt of it years ago. The movie's called Alive Inside. You might want to write that down. Check it out. It's probably on a YouTube. I don't know. But it was done years ago. Alive Inside. And this was where they took people with Alzheimer's and dementia, severe, in a nursing home, most of them catatonic, no response. And they did a study by putting music into their ears. And they purposely picked music of their generation, like the music that they grew up with. And to watch somebody in a catatonic state open their eyes and start to move. Some of them could sing every word to the song. Music can heal the soul. From the depths of our sadness, music can return us to life. Anybody out there relate to that with music? Yes. Yes. Not just talking to myself here. Another thing that can heal the soul, nature. Oh, yes. I look around and know how many people, you know, whether you go into the woods and walk, you know, I see Stephanie who creates this beautiful gardens at her home, off her back patio. It's just a beauty. And to see how she feels when she goes out there and not only nurtures those plants, but sits in that space. How nature can heal our souls. You know, there's a story of a little boy who keeps running to the woods every day. And his father notices that his son keeps escaping to the woods every day. And he finally asks his son, "Why do you keep going to the woods every day?" The boy replies, "I go there to find God." Well, the father replies, "Son, don't you know that God is everywhere?" The boy responds, "Yes, Papa, but I'm not the same everywhere." I'm not the same everywhere. Isn't that the truth? When you go into nature, when you find your spot, when you're in your garden, when you are walking in the woods, the true essence of you, connects with your soul. That's what the purpose of that little story is about. And I can really relate to that. I have been one to go to the woods since I was a little kid. I was starting to build tree houses when I was age 6. I even carpeted my tree house from scraps of carpet. I just loved to be in that big catalpa tree. It was huge. And I just loved being there. And I didn't know this language, but I do. I can go back as if it were yesterday and tell you that I was one with all there was and is when I sat in that tree. And then in my teenage years, my dad bought a 108, 56-acre farm, dilapidated farm in Indiana. He would get on his tractor and bush hog. Me, I would just take off for the woods and just sit there by myself. And I was in awe of everything there was. Whether I was laying down looking at all the branches and the trees, or whether I was looking at the moss on the ground, I felt like I was just in a piece of heaven. And then, of course, many of you know, when I got in my 30s and 40s, I built a cabin in the woods with no electric. I didn't want any noise. I just wanted to be in those woods. And then here I am in my 60s, and my husband and I are sitting on 14 acres of nothing but woods. And I am in heaven every morning when I look out a window and all I see are trees. So this really speaks to me. And I know that many of you, and I'm looking at a lot of our nature walkers here, that go to the woods quite often, no matter what the weather is, because it nourishes your soul. You are connecting with the oneness that this whole book is about, and this whole series of talks has been about. This week 3 of talking about connecting with your soul, because that is where your narrow mind of the day, your narrow mind of the busy schedule, when you take time, you go then into the expansive mind. Now, here's one. Let's see if you can take this, because this is the last one I'm going to tell you is rest. Rest heals the soul. How many of us really do that? Good. I see some people. Now, I don't know, but you know, this COVID time has gotten us binge watching TV. And we binge watch until we're so tired, we're nodding off on the couch. And that doesn't count. Rest is really just taking time for yourself, taking a nice hot shower, nice hot bath, getting a massage, getting acupuncture, getting body work. I look at so many of you are body work practitioners out there, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. To get your clients on a table to relax. You're helping them to heal their soul. How many of you are willing to do some of this week? Yeah, we're in for some snow though. Yeah, you might have to put your boots on if you want to go to nature, but you know there's also a great, all you have to type in on YouTube is meditations, and there are so many choices. You can just look at your screen and imagine going into the woods. So if it gets too cold or too slippery out there, you can do that. You know this. I know you all know what I'm talking about today. But it's the doing of it. You know, that's the saying. If you know it and you don't do it, then you don't know it. If you know it and you don't do it, then you don't know it. So, how many of you will remember this Husa, wabi-sabi love, to be able to look in the mirror this week and say, you know what? I've earned every one of those. These were all my worry lines from my restaurant employees and my kids. I wouldn't change a moment of that. I wouldn't change a moment of that. So see if you can give more wabi-sabi love today and this week to others, but especially to ourselves, because I think that's we're our worst enemy. I think that's true for me, but we need to do it for others too. And to know that you are perfect. Oh, that's a good time to bring our affirmation up for the week. Yeah, I want to leave you with this affirmation today because it's very fitting to the closing of this talk today. All right, see if you can take this in and hopefully make it your truth this week. My imperfections are what make me unique. I am loved exactly the way I am. Ready? My imperfections are what make me unique. I am loved exactly the way I am. One more time with some conviction. My imperfections are what make me unique, and I am loved exactly the way I am. Oh, so to me, from me to you, may I give you wabi-sabi love, and may you return wabi-sabi love and husa to me as I say namaste. The Christ presence in me truly sees that Christ presence in each and every one of you. You are perfect just the way you are. Namaste.